From the Pyle Media Ventures studio in Noblesville, Indiana, this is the Jacob Pyle Show. With tonight's guest, Kelly Anne Manuel, and the host of our show, Jacob Pyle.
Thank you, Zach. Good evening and welcome to the Jacob Pyle Show. My name is Jacob Pyle and I'm glad to have you with us. For the next 30 minutes, unscripted conversations, but with a difference. No shouting, no cussing. All topics that are being discussed on the Jacob Pyle Show have been approved by me before the show taping. My guest for tonight is a children's author. She has wrote a series of books that correspond to the individual days of each month, which I think is really cool. She's here to talk about her 4-book series with us tonight. The Essential series, the Rainbow's End series, the Classics, and the My Name Is series, all of which are published by Balboa Press and can be found on Amazon and other places. Would you please help me in welcoming to the show Kelly Anne Manuel? Welcome to our show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Now, usually whenever a guest has a connection of some sorts of Indiana, usually I will ask this first. We were talking as we were setting up our show today, and you said that you have some sort of connection with Noblesville, Indiana. Tell us about that.
Well, it's more that I went to IU Bloomington. I went for telecommunications, and I had a focus in marketing. But when I was there, my freshman year, we won the national tournament, which is, we're in March right now, so this is kind of fun. And, I was a freshman, and we just won, and it seemed really easy to win a national championship. But I was feeling like one of the key players on the team, Steve Alford, I thought maybe he was from Noblesville, but I could have that wrong. Keith Smart is the one who did the final shot. We were playing against Syracuse, and we won in the final seconds, and it was just incredible to be a freshman and to win that tournament. And then we all just, as students, it was cold, Indiana, right, in March, and we all just ran to the fountain. I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with the campus at Bloomington, but there's a fountain in the main part of the campus. And for some reason, we all just ran to the fountain.
So, just to correct the error, just to officially correct the little error here, you actually have had a connection with Bloomington, Indiana, through IU. So
right. Yep.
Well, I'm glad to have a fellow fellow IU alumni on our show. So, let me start by asking how you decided to become a writer.
It honestly became a calling. I was not writing. I only started writing in a spring of 2022. I started hearing poetry, in my head. I heard poems. And I heard a lot of poems, and I realized that they were meant to be put into book format for children. I realized that they were nursery rhymes, along the lines of, say, a Hans Christian Andersen. And I realized that they were experiential. So I heard the poems. I realized these are stories for children. I need to get them published as quickly as possible. I just felt an urgency because of the experiences that the books cover. And I felt that they could be a layer of support for children. And so I got to work on publishing all 31 books, and I did so within a 6-month period.
Cool. All right, so as I mentioned to you at the top of the show, we are going to devote vote a segment, or the majority of the segment, to each of your book series, since we do have a lot of book series that we got to delve into today. So to start out with, I want to talk about the Essential series of books. Now, tell us about those series of books.
Sure. So the Essentials are what I consider your sort of day-to-day, day-in, day-out books. So I published 31 books because that's the longest days in a month. The longest month has 31 days. So my goal was for there to be at least one book a day for a child. So the essentials kind of get down into day in and day out experiences. What they do is they reinforce positive self-talk, positive mantras. And because they rhyme, the children remember them. And they're just very simple ideas. So like one of the books is called The Morning Good. So I'll flip titles and phrases. So instead of good morning, the morning good is an essential. And it's simply about greeting the morning or the day with optimism and making that decision to face the day with optimism. But it's just a cute rhyme. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to wake up and face the day with optimism. It's like, hey, let's say good morning to the sun. And the sun is going to say good morning to you. So it's this idea that I use entertainment and rhyme, but in there's something very important for the child to latch onto and to take into their system. And that's where rhyming is so helpful. So that's an example of an essential. They're also, let's see, so here's like the morning good. So the essentials also deal with things like block play, like in the blocks building. So instead of building blocks, it's the blocks building. And it's just about looking at playing with blocks on the floor. These are very simple ideas, but when you put a rhyme to them, it becomes more magical. And another example, another example would be, the world's small instead of small world. So that's an essential. That's about connectedness. That's about the idea that we all tuck in under the same sky every night. And that really, if you go various places, you'll find that children have similar ways to play. Children in America like bubbles, and children in Ireland like bubbles. So there's common themes, and it ties us together. I use a lot of nature in the essentials because it's something that children can relate to on such a basic level that's in their environment already. So that's kind of what the essentials do.
Cool. I like how. Yeah, I was gonna say that is so cool. It's you're making the essentials books. How you're mixing up the titles of the words like good morning or like all those other stuff you were mentioning, and you're creating these books for a child to read once a day, every day, and to be able to enjoy them and to be able to enjoy the book. And I think that's really cool.
Yes, the love of reading is the goal. Everything else is gravy. The love of reading is the goal for the age group that I write for.
And what grade? And if you don't mind my asking, what grade levels mostly are these books subjected towards? Do you have like any general idea, or are they maybe for little kids or school age kids?
You have to pick an age group when you go to publish. So the age group I chose is 4 to 8. Now, what I have found is babies as young as 8 months old respond to the morning good, to the polar bears, and to the northern lights. And same with the world's small. So really, they're never too young to start with my books because there's something about them that the child just can connect to. And as they grow, they'll connect to the books in a different way. But you can, and honest to goodness, I feel any age who interacts with the books really walks away with something, but really it's rhyming for childhood development and for childhood literacy is a huge bonus. It really is. So rhyming is actually assisting with the development for literacy. So I'm kind of tackling, a lot of different areas with the books.
Okay. we have to pause for this timeout. When we come back, more with Kelly Anne Manuel. Stay with us. We're back. My guest for tonight is children's author Kelly Anne Manuel, author of the Essential series, the Rainbow's End series, the Classics, and the My Name Is series, all of which are published by Balboa Press and can be found on Amazon. Now, the next book in your series that I want to talk with you about is the Rainbow's End series. Tell us about that.
The Rainbow's End series is about transporting the reader to a land of make-believe, right? So that's, for a child, that can be fairly easy, but for the person interacting with the child, it's a huge gift, because what the Rainbow's End, anything can happen at the end of a rainbow. And it gives me permission to create events that would not normally occur without the Rainbow's End. So that's exactly what they do. They create, example is the boots rain instead of rain boots. I'm trying to find it. Here it is. The boots rain. Okay. So instead of rain boots, at the end of the rainbow, the beautiful boots fall down from the sky. The magical colors are wet, and the boots surprisingly dry. So it's the idea. I got the idea when I was walking Teddy Roosevelt, my dog, one day, and I was putting on my rain boots, and I thought, what if the opposite happened and the boots weren't on the feet, the boots came down? And what this ends up being is a book about individuality, because every boot, by all accounts, no two boots were the same, right? So it's just a simple book about individuality, but with a totally different way of looking at the world. So say there's an adult wanting to connect with a child. By creating an event at the end of the rainbow, it allows them a little bit of time to go there and to go to that place of imagination with the child. So the Rainbow's End ones are just so much fun. So, another one is, the snow last instead of the last snow. So in this book, now this book is, it's a tale that may feel a bit cold, but it's a tale that must be told. So this is about endings. So, but this also happens at the end of the rainbow. And the idea with the snow last is that even though something ends, it's always the beginning of something else. Very simple, very entertaining, very gentle, but the message is there, and it's at the end of a rainbow. So there's just so much I can do. It gives me so much permission as an author. And what I do also on the back of every book is an in-depth synopsis of what the book can do for whoever is interacting with the child in the book, because they are meant to be points of discussion. They are meant to start open dialogue. So that's something that's really important that I spent a lot of time on, is the synopsises on the back of the books.
All right, so let's like I mentioned, for those of you who are just now tuning in, each series of the books that we're talking about today there's 31 books in the series that are divided up, that are meant for, read a book to a child one day of every month. And what gave you, what kind of gave you the inspiration I don't know if you said this at the opening or not, but what kind of gave you the inspiration to have a book series for each day of the month?
That came from, I was writing so much. The flow was so incredible. So many books were coming. And I was doing hybrid self-publishing, which there's a cost attached to that. So I said, I have to stop at a certain number. So I capped it at 31. And I landed on 31 because it was the longest amount of days in a month. But it was difficult to have so much coming, so many poems that I wanted to turn into nursery rhymes, but to have to limit myself to a number. And 31 was the magic number because I had 27 books in 14 days. The art and everything, curated the art, all the words, the manuscripts were all created in 14 days. And then I completed the 31 within that next week after the 14 days. So 21 days, 31 books. Now, there were more, but as I say, there was a cost attached. So I had to figure out a practical way to set a boundary with myself. But I have so much more to give. I have so many more books I want to publish.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So, we still have about more minutes left. We have a little bit of extra time. We actually have four. Like I mentioned, we have four book series we're going to talk about. And now, I'm going to go ahead and the next book series here that I want to touch up on real briefly is the classics. Tell us about the classics.
So the classics. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that, I feel that no matter your age, that you will glean something from interacting with my stories. But, the general age group that I write for is 4 to 8. Now, the classics are particularly special regarding no age limit because they are what I call my classics. They're the ones that have a message that is so endearing and just so apropos for any stage of life. So, for example, the Night Quiet, that's instead of Quiet Night. And the Night Quiet is all about asking the night quiet to keep its date with me or with the child, where you just want that moment of quiet and peace at nighttime. That's what the Night Quiet does. So the Night Quiet is my good night moon. It's my good night moon. So that's what the classics do. So another example of a classic would be the line sky. So instead of skyline, it's the line sky. So the line sky is about, it's broader, they're broader themes than the essentials. Broader. So the line sky is about dreams, right? Because on the line sky, you can see anything with your mind's eye. And it's about not having any rules when you dream up what you want to dream up. So the classics tackle, I'd say, bigger themes, broader themes, and the essentials are more specific themes. So like the Night Quiet is about, day to night, and the Morning Good is simply about waking up with optimism. So it's a broader stroke with the classics and a more specific goal with the essentials. That's how they kind of vary in their different ways. And one of my really good classics is The Catch Your Dream instead of Dream Catcher, right? So The Catch Your Dream is all about boundaries. So I really address a variety of topics and experiences, and I create a feeling for the child to relate to so that they can recall it with, of course, the rhyming when they might need it at any given time or point in their life. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it really does. So we still have about 1 minute left. How can people get a hold of you?
Really, you can just Google, because I want people to find me however they are led to. So you just Google Kelly Anne Manuel. Now, as an author, for me, it's really best if you're going to purchase the books to go through Balboa Press, because that way there's also quality control over the paper and the production of the books. So that's my favorite. I have also converted all the books into audio and to video, and they are incredible. So Yeah, proaudiovoices.com is the best way to buy because you can buy the series for much cheaper than one at a time. Also, Hoopla, the library system, you can rent the audiobooks or just borrow them, not even rent them. So I say go try me out with the library. I do have a YouTube video where I've read a couple of the books to children on a YouTube video, Kelly Anne Manuel YouTube. Check that out as well.
All right. We have to pause again for this timeout. When we come back, we will conclude our conversation with Kelly Anne Manuel. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. My guest for tonight is children's author Kelly Anne Manuel, author of the Essential series, the Rainbow's End series, the Classics, and the My Name Is series, all of which are published by Balboa Press and can be found on Balboa Press's website, Amazon, and other places. Okay, now the last book that in your series that we want to talk about tonight is the My Name Is series. Tell us about that.
The My Name Is series is so important. It's all about identity and development of self. So in the My Name Is, in the books that I write that start with My Name Is, there is a discussion, healthy discourse, and back and forth about what the child is observing and what the narrator has in mind. And it's just a healthy discussion about the child says, I see this. And the narrator says, well, I see that. And they just discuss it. And there's permission for both the child and the narrator to state their observations and for it to just be a clear, concise model of healthy interpersonal communication. At the same time, modeling for a child to really think about what they observe about themselves and about others, and to have permission to discuss it in a healthy, constructive way. So My Name Is Wing is all about when a wing is clipped, what does it look like? Wing didn't know its wings were clipped. It thought it still looked like a wing. And the child says, you don't resemble any winged thing. So they have a talk about it, and by the end, there's a resolution. Now, whether it's to agree or disagree, there's a resolution. In my book, My Name is Mountain, this is my first book, by the way, and it's all about a mountain who's kind of given itself away one pebble at a time. Now, this is also clearly about our environment and not just taking from the environment, but it's also the idea that what if a mountain is serving its purpose, and every time someone comes to visit, they take a pebble from it? Would it stay a mountain or would it become a hole? The child sees a hole, even though the mountain sees itself as a mountain. So by the end, they agree to disagree, but it's a healthy back and forth model for children to take into their system and go out into the world and use in social interactions, which is so necessary.
Cool. That is awesome. Okay, so we still have about 6 more minutes left. So what would be your advice to anybody that would be interested in becoming an author?
My gosh, I say right away, right away. WRITE, right away, RIGHT. I also say don't discard the seed. When I started this, I thought I was just writing a few poems. I had no idea when I started out that I would convert them into nursery rhymes, let alone 31. I thought My Name is Mountain was an only child, and I turned out to have multiples. So you don't always see it from the perspective of when it's a seed and when it's tiny. We only like to admire and see it once it's grown into that giant sequoia. So I say, pay attention to those little thoughts, jot them down, water them from time to time, give them the light of the sun from time to time, and see what they might grow into. Instead of looking at the outcome at the beginning, look at the inception. I've written an article recently about embracing the spirit of the seed. What is it like for the seed when it's in the ground, in the dark, no concept of what is above it when it breaks through, but it knows in its DNA it must break through to survive. And I say, pay attention to that. Pay attention to the growth of the seed that knows it has to fight through. It has to get to the top in order for it to see the light of day and become what beautiful, beautiful thing it's meant to become.
That's cool. We have a little bit of extra time left. I just want to say one thing. When I was a little kid, I think a lot of things encouraged me reading. My parents reading to me, my teachers reading to me, and I even watched I still watch this show even to this day. I don't know why, but my favorite show is Reading Rainbow, and watching that, and watching Burton, the host, get so interested in those books, made me interested in read, and that's what got me interested in learning to read and reading. Growing up when I was a kid. So, what about you? When you were little, when you were really little, what inspired, who taught you how to read?
My mother, and of course school, but I immersed myself in books. For me, literature was a layer of support. It was. It was a window. It was a door. It was an adventure. And I took that to the furthest extent I could. Now I believe it was laying the groundwork for what I'm doing today. But I didn't know it back then. I do remember going to the library to reading time and absolutely hanging on every word that the librarian read from every story. It felt like a transportation on a magical carpet. That is what I am trying to do with my stories. I really am trying to do that, because anyone who works with children, interacts with children, adores children, wants them to have as many layers of support as possible. And if we view literature as a layer of support, that gives me the energy and the motivation to do more and more and more and answer the collective call of the childhood.
Alright, so we still have about a minute and 43, almost 40 seconds left. So is there what was your favorite book out of all the series that we just talked about today? What was your favorite book series that you wrote that was your favorite to write?
Gosh, they all just came so individually and so beautifully. If I were to speak about impact, what I think at this time, well, gosh, one of the most impactful ones I believe is the inclusive all. Instead of an all-inclusive, it's a play on an all-inclusive resort, right? But it's the inclusive all, and it's dedicated to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's who it's dedicated to. Oh, I can't. I'm terrible with showing you things. Anyway, the book is gorgeous. The art is just gorgeous, and it's all about a magical place where everything nicely interacts, organically interacts, and the child takes it upon itself to go out and explore. And it was anything the child could dream of and more. So, something just as simple as the inclusive all might give, I say, a layer of support once again to a child on any given day, and maybe to the adult that's interacting with the inclusive all. It's a beautiful, beautiful book with peacocks and ethereal art and a magical place where everything is magical and organic. I use nature once again as a way to connect with the child. And of course, the inclusive all is no different than any of the books. See the peacocks? They are just beautiful. Yeah, these are things that any child will react to. They're unisex. They're for anybody who wants to lose themselves just for a moment and be entertained by a rhyme and be transported to a different place, even if it's just for a few seconds or a few minutes while they're interacting with the book.
Well, it is an amazing conversation, and as I always say, this conversation could go on forever if we wanted it to, but we do have to end our conversation here as we have run out of time. My guest has been Kelly Anne Manuel, author of the Essential Series, the Rainbow's End series, the Classics, and the My Name Is series, all of which are published by Balboa Press and can be found on Amazon, the Balboa Press website, and other places. I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. And I will be back next week with another guest to talk to. Until then, for Kelly Anne Manuel, Zach Brown, and all of us on the Jacob Pyle Show, I'm Jacob Pyle. Thank you all for watching, and night good, everybody.
If you want to be a guest on The Jacob Pyle Show, or if you'd like a DVD copy of tonight's program, send Jacob an email. His email address is jtpyle1@aol.com. Or if you're ordering a DVD copy of tonight's program, send $10 check or money order to The Jacob Pyle Show, care of Pyle Media Ventures. Post Office Box 154, Noblesville, Indiana 46061. Please include the air date seen on your screen when ordering. Residents outside of Indiana add $5 shipping and handling. This is Zach Brown speaking for The Jacob Pyle Show, a Pyle Media Ventures presentation. This program has been pre-recorded.